Hi, this is class 4 of the CAPM exam series, and the topic of today's video is from idea to action. If you are seeing me for the first time, I'm PM professor, and project management is what I do all day, every day. Let me start at the very beginning. That is project initiation. You figure out what's in scope and what's out. This is where most teams get sloppy. You identify your constraints before they become disasters. And most importantly, you get official authorization. Think of it like this: project initiation is like getting everyone to sign a contract before you start building a house. Because without it, the architect thinks you want modern, the builder thinks you want a traditional house, and you end up with a house nobody wanted. And here's where things get tricky. So you got your project initiated, goals are clear now, everyone is aligned, and you start building. 3 months in, your boss walks up and asks, "So, what are we actually getting out of this project?" And you freeze because you realize you never actually defined why you're doing this project in the first place. Sure, you know what you're building, but the why behind it, that's fuzzy. This is the silent killer of projects. You can execute perfectly, hit every deadline, stay under budget, and still build something that delivers zero value. I've seen it happen before. A team spent a year building an internal tool that automated a process. Technically, it was flawless, but nobody ever used it. Why? Because the problem they solved was only saving 5 minutes per week per person. The juice wasn't worth the squeeze. This is where benefit planning saves you. It forces you to answer one brutal question: what's real and measurable value will this project create? Not fluffy value, not improved efficiency, but real value like we'll reduce customer support tickets by 30%. We'll increase conversion rate from 2 to 3.5%. We'll save the company $200,000 annually. Here's the truth: a project without a clearly stated benefit isn't a project, it's busy work. It fills calendars for sure, but it doesn't move the needle on what actually matters. So before you go any further, you need to spell out the benefits very clearly. Get as specific as possible. Get measurable, because if you can't articulate the why, you shouldn't be doing the project at all. But okay, you know your what and you know your why. Now comes the part where most people completely fall apart. Picture this: you're 3 weeks into execution. Suddenly, your lead developer quits. Then your budget gets cut by 15%. Then a key stakeholder changes their mind about a core feature. And everyone on your team looks at you like, "What do we do now?" If you don't have an answer, chaos will erupt, people will panic, communication will break down, and everyone will start making contradictory decisions, and the project will spiral out of control. This is a nightmare scenario, and it happens because teams think planning is about the happy path. They plan for everything to go right, but they never plan for when things go wrong. This is why you need strategic frameworks. Think of them as your emergency playbooks. Let me show you the difference. Without frameworks, your projects will look like this. And with the frameworks, the same projects will look much better. The difference is you'll have less chaos and more control. But what does a framework actually look like? Let me give you some concrete examples. Starting with the communication plan. It's every Monday at 9 a.m. We send a project status email to these 5 stakeholders with these specific metrics. Or a risk management plan where we'll say that we'll handle problems if budget overruns by 10%. We'll immediately activate contingency fund and notify the sponsor within 24 hours. See the difference? Specificity. Pre-planned responses, no guessing when things go sideways. But here's the thing, you can have the best frameworks in the world and they will be completely US if you mess up on this next part. So you have done everything right so far. You have initiated properly, you have defined your benefits, you have built beautiful frameworks, and then execution starts and your team just doesn't follow them. They improvise, they skip steps. They think, oh, we don't need to follow the communication plan for this small update. And slowly but surely, all that careful planning becomes worthless. This is the execution trap. You can have the world's best blueprint, but if the builders don't follow it, you're not getting the building you design. So here's what execution actually requires. It requires an active skill. Your team needs to understand not just what the frameworks are, but how to use them and when to activate them. Let me show you what this looks like in action. Imagine a key supplier delays their delivery by 2 weeks. This is a risk you already identified. Here's what happens without proper execution training. Team panics, everyone has different opinions, finger pointing starts, project derails. Here's what happens with proper execution training. Risk event occurs, team member immediately references the risk management framework, they execute the pre-planned response. And maybe they even switch to a backup supplier. They activate the communication plan to notify stakeholders. Everyone stays calm because they just follow the procedure. No chaos, just a procedure. This is the magic. Good strategic planning doesn't eliminate problems. That's impossible. What it does is transform unpredictable disasters into manageable procedures. It gives you control even when things go wrong.